I've come to this point where I've been sharing videos for several months, probably around a year now actually. I've observed this idea of performance slowly creeping in. The idea that I have to say the right thing in the right way, otherwise it won't land and you won't be interested. And chances are, if you're still watching, then there's something of interest here for you, and it's probably not the words I'm speaking. And so much of my life is filled with noise, partly because of the type of work I'm involved in. It's a necessary part of interacting with the modern world to some degree. But also because largely in today's world there isn't a space to just sit and be quiet in the company of others often. Certainly if you aren't of a religious inclination, and I'm not particularly. So I come to these places to be quiet, to enjoy the silence, to hear the nature. To feel that sense of aliveness and connection that all of us crave and often look for in our mobile devices, televisions, but seldom find. Connection is something we are seemingly getting worse at. There seems to be a growing need for it, but a diminishing ability to experience it, apparently. And over the last week I've noticed, having once again been reflecting on the life journey, or the life path, the reason that any of us come into a body and are called to do the things that we do. Just how lonely the experience becomes, in a way, when you step away from what's considered to be socially acceptable or normal. When you stop going to the pub to socialise, or talking about the events of the news with the people that you're surrounded by, or the things that you have in common stop being superficial and you start looking for a depth beyond those things. How it can at times feel as if one is walking a very lonely path. And the path of spiritual growth is often referred to as a lonely one. It's lonely in a couple of ways, at least in my experience. One is to the mind. The mind craves novelty, pleasure, avoidance, stimulation. And so when there is an absence of those things, in the moments when one feels less resilient, they seem to be amplified. And it can seem as if there is a greater need for help, support, guidance, especially when one is feeling slightly lost. But also, no one can walk the path for you. So it's lonely in the sense of you have to discover it for yourself. You have to find what works for you, whether that's a practice, whether it's a way of living, whether it's the types of things that you try or gravitate towards or stop doing. And often that involves a lot of trial and error, which comes with the risk, and the risk is you spend years doing things to realise that actually they're largely meaningless. They take you nowhere. And I don't say any of these things from a place of regret. You know, I'm not sad about it. But it's interesting. And when I look around, I see signs of new life coming on the trees here. And I also see immediately signs of old life passing. And the old life that's decaying and going back into the soil will form the basis of the nutrition for the new life to spring forth. And constantly we're reminded from nature that there is this passing that has to take place for new growth to come. And in the inner sense, that passing looks like letting go of old beliefs and ideas of who one is, what one is here for, questions about purpose or value or meaning, all of which will come when one starts to step away from what's generally accepted to be the right thing to do. There's an enormous amount of conflict in the world at the moment. Visibly, there is always some degree of conflict. In nature, it's the polarity. Without it, we'd have no experience. But the pain and the suffering seems to be particularly amplified at the moment. And I've been reflecting on this in the last week, and it seems to me that what we're seeing is a gross externalization of the conflict that we are increasingly living within. A conflict generated by disconnection from the world around us, from the people around us. A conflict created by our minds, which will conjure up stories and suggest that once we've secured wealth or status or assets, that we will somehow be in a better position than we are now. And anyone that's ever accumulated those things will know that that's not the case. You can buy as many things as your bank balance will allow you and conquer as many lands as your armies will be able to, but it's an endless journey. It's an endless quest. It yields nothing. And the hardest thing is that the teachings, the spiritual teachings, the religious teachings, they tell us to turn away from these things. And to turn away from these things feels like an enormous sacrifice, because look at what everyone else has. Look at what we're missing out on. Look at what's going on around us. Everyone else is succeeding in their careers and their families, building houses and fortunes, and I'm not. But just because those people have those things, it doesn't mean that they are fulfilled. It doesn't mean that they feel a sense of value or purpose in this world. And that's not to degrade them or to diminish anything that they have done, simply just to observe that the comparison that we cast upon others aids us in no way. It casts the attention outwards, stops us from looking at ourselves other than through the lens of criticism or comparison. And we lose sight of what's really important, which is, for any of us, I would argue, that sense of peace and fulfillment that comes from just being here. Being here is not particularly glamorous. It's not particularly exciting. And that's fine. It's not something you can monetize because it's not exciting or novel or shiny. But it's free. I wonder how many of us realize that we are here in this moment. You are alive. You exist in a body which is temporary and at some point will not be here. And yet most of your attention is focused on what's happened in the past, regrets, failures, missed opportunities, all the things which we fear will happen in the future, such as war, poverty, sickness, or things we want to happen that carry with them the promise of happiness. And all of these things stem from a desire to avoid discomfort. But if discomfort is here, then pretending to be somewhere else doesn't avoid the discomfort. All it does is it sends it deeper inside, sends a signal to the body that how I feel in this moment isn't okay. There's something wrong with me and it needs to be fixed. And the only resolution is to do something on the outside. All the while neglecting the fact that the feeling arises on the inside and the only place that it can be resolved is on the inside. Ironically, it can't be resolved by trying to resolve it. It can be resolved by allowing it to be there, acknowledging that discomfort and pain are parts of the life experience, and that the more determined we are to run from them, the more determined they seem to be to follow us. And some of us get to a point where we say, okay, fine, I give up. I surrender. I accept this discomfort may never leave me. I accept that it's here, and it may not be me, it may not be a part of me in its entirety, but I accept it may not go. And somehow then it moves. And being here is just that. Being here is to be with what's here, however that looks or feels in the moment. And if being here is painful, it doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean that you're never destined to find happiness or fulfillment or any kind of stability in your life. it's a passing state, in the same way that the sky currently is covered with a blanket of cloud which has no end as far as I can see. But that doesn't mean that there isn't an end somewhere. I just don't know when or where, but I know it exists. And I had an image pop into my mind when I was thinking about this yesterday. And when we have pain, or we have suffering in our experience, it's like this piece of wood here, and it clouds everything else in our lives, and it becomes the entirety of our focus, and we lose sight of everything else that's around us. We become the pain, we become the suffering, we become the discomfort. We lose sight of who and what we are beyond that. And spiritual practice, or spiritual awareness, consciousness, whichever word you want to use, it doesn't necessarily remove this, but what it does is it takes it from here and moves it to here, so it becomes relative. The thing that we struggle with the most in our lives is that we mistake this thing here, which is relative, for something which is absolute. In other words, it's permanent, it's everlasting, it's exactly a definition of who and what we are in a very limited form, as you can see. And awareness brings distance, allows us to see the suffering. In my case, it's illuminated the experience of loneliness, which I have lived with for a very, very long time, which oscillates between the mind saying, there's something wrong with you, you need to get help, and the heart saying, that's not you, that's the mind. And that's okay, you can be with it. And for those of you who are in a bad place, that's extremely hopeful, I think. There are many ways to practice. There are many ways to find your way to that. And it's not my place in the context of this particular video to be trying to tell you what that looks like, because as I alluded to earlier in this video, everyone's path is different. But what's important to know, to remember, is the natural order. There is growth and there is decay, and they are not separate. They're at different ends of the spectrum. And that if you are experiencing suffering, if you are experiencing hardship, then that's an indication that there is fertile soil, that some form of decay has the potential to take place within you. It may be the idea that you are an individual who is destined to suffer, or to be alone, never to find your place in this world. And if you see those things as ideas rather than truths, then something new can spring forth, as it continues to do for me. And it doesn't mean necessarily that the pain or the suffering instantly vanishes, although it can. It finds perspective. And I feel that's the thing that we're all seeking, really. We think it's happiness, because happiness is an idea, and it's a nice idea. What we really want is perspective, because all of us will at some point have to face the inevitable passing of our bodies and the bodies of those that we love, and the things that we love, and that is painful. So what brings us together, what connects us, isn't the experience. What really brings us together is that we have the ability to perceive the experience with distance, for it to be relative, for us to acknowledge the experiences of others and to acknowledge that maybe the experiences others are having are not relative, that they are absolute, they appear absolute. That there are many people out there who believe that their identity, that their existence is pain, misfortune, hardship, suffering. And it's not necessarily our jobs to try and convince them otherwise. We have the opportunity to discover for ourselves this perspective, and the knowledge of that perspective inside allows us to be with others without trying to change them. And none of us want to be changed. We may wish to be helped or supported. And I feel the best we can do to help or support those around us that we love is to be with them, to recognize in this moment, I am here, and that you are here also, and that one of us may be experiencing suffering, and that we don't need to go to great lengths to change that. It's a part of the human experience, and nothing that I can change on the outside is going to truly resolve that feeling forever. It will come back, but it may come back with a greater perspective. And perspective allows these things to move along, rather than trying to grasp them in place. And just take some time for yourselves to enjoy the sounds of the world around you, even if those sounds are man-made. Experience them. It's easy to rush to the next thing, and there is always a next thing. There are many next things which no doubt will arise for me the second I stop recording this video. And I'm not sharing these things because I have all of the answers, nor because I wish for you to think I figured everything out. It's simply an opportunity for me to allow myself some space and perhaps to invite you into that space at the same time. As I mentioned on a previous video, the last few weeks of life have been reasonably challenging emotionally, mentally. But those moments of pressure have reminded me of what's important. And again, to use the analogy, I have been here and I have come back to this, and this will keep doing this for as long as it needs to, I guess, until I stop exercising a preference for it to not be there. That's the hardest thing to do. But none of us are alone in this, like truly alone. I've been thinking over the last few weeks around the purpose of doing the things I do in this form. Much of it, I would say in the past, has been from a desire to do something useful, and that's still there to a point. But it's so easy to slip into a performance, to become something that you aren't, to try and convince people that you're something different, to make it feel like you are somehow, I am somehow worthy of your attention. And personally, that's not something I can control. I have come to this realization that so many of us seek space, real, meaningful, deep space. And of all of the things I care about in the world, bringing that space, bringing that sense of perspective to people is nothing more important to me, whether that yields any form of financial outcome or not. Of course, the mind would like it to. I have to put that to one side. And so if space is something that you value, or want to value more, or would like to experience more of, then that will be the orientation around which this channel is formed. And no doubt as I continue to share, I will get better at holding that space. And I would like to invite you into that space also. And I'll also do my best to bring some more of the natural world into that space, because there is so much of it here, which I am sure some of you may not have the chance to experience for various reasons. And this particular part of the United Kingdom can be a lovely place with perspective. And so I will endeavour to incorporate that too. But for now, I'll leave you with the sounds of nature for a few moments as I continue my walk on around this play park here. And I'll see you again very soon.